as the industry gets more organized, you start getting more statistics. Historically, a sport that we've spent a lot of time on the last half year is curling, massive sport in Canada.
Welcome to Sponsor Bowl, a podcast that brings together sports organizers and brand leaders to talk about the business of grassroots sports. I'm Garrett Shea, and I've spent the last 20 years in the youth sport industry, where I've built nationally televised sporting events and corporate sponsorship programs. I created this podcast to bring in experts from the youth sports industry and have them share what they do in the space and how they do it. Today's guest is Greer Monterastelli, VP of Home Team Network. We're going to talk about all things live streaming today. Greer, thanks so much for joining us today. Great to have you on the show and great to be reconnected.
Pleasure to be on. Good to see you. Excited to talk about the space that we both have benefited from and love so much in sports.
Yeah. So the show's Sponsor Bowl, and it's the business of youth sports. Clearly, we've both been involved in youth sports. I met you actually 20 years ago when you had created Recruits Unlimited, a national combine and recruiting company, and then went on to work with you at the U.S. Army All-American Bowl as well as some other places. But maybe just share a little bit about your work history, career path through youth sports.
Yeah, actually, I got through a master's degree and didn't know what was next. My options were to go into sports events or continue on as an athletic trainer, and I chose sports events. Amazingly, was one of the first organizations to offer a high school combine for football players, which, as you look now around the space, kids have no shortage of exposure and opportunities to promote their brand and their skills and their assets that they can bring to a college football program. Back then, we were just barely into the internet. Kids didn't have film online. Kids sent actual hard letters to coaches. And so this was our chance to get out to the young people, put on an event, and even unique for now, a free event for kids, to give them an opportunity to get exposure to college football programs as they look to play at the next level.
And you're really an entrepreneur, very entrepreneurial, rather. Maybe talk a little bit about, you started up a company, and why'd you start it up?
Well, I think what's really interesting to me is the white space, right? You have this flexibility of starting from scratch, and what can you do to create a product or a service that allows you to create some value for the end customer. Then it was 15 to 18-year-old high school football players, and how could you help them expand their brand? Now, amazingly, what brought value there, or what kept it going, was kind of the roots of your podcast here. The way we could provide that free opportunity for the athletes was through sponsorships and through large corporate partnerships that saw the reach, saw the ability for us to take this nationally and reach young people. And so that's what really drove me towards the excitement of starting, something new. From there it goes into, us having the opportunity to work together at the Army All-American Bowl, but that was taking that brand and all the things that we learned in starting that company. And really, like everybody talks about today, how do you take something to scale? Because that's really what we were doing, is we were taking it to the main stage, high-profile athletes, high-profile organizations, and taking all of the learnings that we had from creating that company to another organization.
And maybe share a little bit about, because folks may not know about who were some of your sponsors at Recruits Unlimited.
Early adopters were Adidas was one of them, and I think they were a leader in the fact that they saw, as the recruiting landscape has obviously changed drastically, Garrett, in our time, last 20 plus years, but 20 years ago, schools and enterprise companies like that were looking for ways to get student athletes on campuses. How could they get on campus? And this was one of the ways that was approved by everybody involved, by universities, by the NCAA, and then Adidas underwrote this free opportunity for campuses. This now is seen everywhere. Everyone has weekend camps, day camps. In a lot of places now they call them ID camps. But this is kind of the model that was, Adidas is how could they get their brand and connect their brand to, and at that time, it was schools that Adidas had partnered with. And so the original ones were, University of Nebraska and University of Tennessee and Notre Dame and, some of these schools that when Adidas got into the college space, that was their first spot was how could they find, and just naming those four, how could they find unique schools that all kind of have the same characteristics? Single main school in a state, single fan base that maybe has a national following. And so it really worked out well that when Adidas put their name on some of the events that we did, it was just a natural fit with their campuses and brought those student athletes to expose them both to the brand of the footwear, but then also the brand of the university that they were also partnered with.
Yeah. And that's like when I look at and analyze a great partnership or sponsorship, I mean, you nailed it. It's the big brand like Adidas who has obviously relationships and or sponsorships with, major universities like Nebraska and Notre Dame. And, you go through their list. And then they wanted to connect down into the high school ranks and help those universities recruit better players and get better players on campus and expose the Adidas brand. And you were kind of the conduit. Your company would go out and run those events, they were branded Adidas, get Adidas, apparel onto all of those elite athletes and team up and partner with the college coaches from those universities.
And the win was that we were value on both sides. We provided value for the athlete because it got them an opportunity for the exposure, and we provided value for the sponsor because I always say a sponsorship's got to be a partnership. I mean, you can call it a sponsorship, but it's truly a partnership because if it's 1 year, you and I have done enough of these behind the scenes to know that it's too much work to just do it one time or just for an annual engagement. And so I truly believe that it's a partnership. So how can they gain value and have some longevity to what it was? And so that's where, when you look at that, it created a great opportunity for us because student athletes, again, it seems so weird to say that you couldn't just get on your phone, get on IG, get on Facebook, get on any of these networks that coaches get to student athletes very easily, and the student athletes get to the coaches as well. They had to physically go to these locations to be seen, and this provided great value for Adidas, the campus, and then, of course, at that time, the Recruits Unlimited was the company. We benefited from all of those factors.
Yeah. So you clearly have extensive experience in the event world and building massive events, national tours, if you would. Let's fast forward to your current role. You're currently the VP at Home Team Network. Give us a little background. Give us an introduction to what is Home Team Network and what are you doing there?
Home Team Network was basically birthed in 2020 when we were all sitting around, I think at some point watching South Korean baseball on ESPN because that was the only thing that was being broadcast. And those guys were sitting in Bristol broadcasting games that were in South Korea. A couple guys, actually 2 Canadian guys, that they were looking to how can they bring any level of an event. So it's predominantly what we do is sports, but any event, there is an audience for a broadcast or a stream. And now over the last 4+ years, we've cut their teeth in hockey rinks because certainly there's a lot of hockey in Canada, but it's expanded to this pretty amazing portfolio of events because we're all spoiled now. We're all used to being able to get on our device and stream anything we want across all the different streaming services that we have. And, you and I, we grew up with Game of the Week. You didn't get to pick who the team was. You were a couple announcers of CBS, NBC, if it was Notre Dame, it was CBS, it was going to be, that crew, and you got that game, and that's all you got. Now we expect them all because, of course, almost all college Division I competitions are broadcast in some form. And now we expect to be able to get to youth sports and travel sports as well. And so what we've done is we've brought the digital high quality production level, if that's what an organization or event chooses, to any level of sports. So it could be a single camera that's run by a robot in one hockey rink. To in 10 days, I'm headed to Guelph, Ontario for the fourth leg of the Grand Slam of curling, and we'll have 4 sheets of ice that we're going to broadcast across 6 days, and we'll have about 90 total games that'll be broadcast live internationally over those 6 days.
So talk to us about like the economics of the business. So how's it work?
It really depends on what the rights holder, the organizer, the event, the league, the team, what they're trying to accomplish. Because we have organizations that come to us that they just want a production. They don't want a paywall. They want as high quality of production as they can get. We're sponsored, we're spoiled by every night of the week having everything broadcast by one of the bigger networks. And so we expect all the information on screen. We expect replays. We expect high level commentary and all of these things. And so, what have consumers done? They want to bring that to whatever level it is that they're watching, whether it's, flag football in Central Indiana or lacrosse in Cranberry, New Jersey, right? I mean, they want to add all of those things to their broadcasts. So some organizations actually pay to have their competitions or their events broadcast, which of course then just goes to the cloud and goes to the home team platform. We've got other organizations that actually build in this to their league or their travel team. So they build the service in. So it's like when you check in for fall camp, you get your shoulder pads, your helmet. Kids don't wear girdles as much anymore. And something that comes with it is a membership to having all of their games streamed for the season. And so then that allows for, in areas of population where moms, dads, extended family don't have the opportunity to travel to see the participant. And so all of those games are then streamed. And then the third, which of course now I think we're all very used to, is subscriptions, right? So we have organizations that they allow us access to the content, rights to broadcast what they're doing. And then there is a subscription with it. Some of those are seasons. Some of those are a weekend event, right? We're all very familiar with like the Friday through Sunday tournament, right? Where over the course of a weekend event, you have access to all of the matches. And then some of them are single events where they want that culminating event of their league season or of their school or whatever it is. And so that allows kind of a number of different ways for people to have access to that content. Amazingly, probably more than half of our views, though, of that is not live. We're still not we've gotten away from this appointment TV, right? So since it's not live, it allows, people to go to those archives and get it when they have time to, sit down and get those bits in. And of course, then going back to, what you spend most of your time with and what this podcast is about, all of our partners and advertisers love that because anything that's built into the live production, of course, is in the archives for any of the user or any of the viewers that, watch those events going forward.
Yeah. So just to kind of summarize, so essentially you will, Home Team Network goes to an event operator, let's say, and says, hey, these are the different models that you can take on. And let's say the event operator says, "Hey, we'll do the we'll build this into the registration fee." Is there What does Home Team Network then do? Are you providing all of the hardware? Are you staffing it? Are you
It depends on the playing surface. I've been calling them fields for 5 months, and they beat me out of it because, of course, we're doing an amazing number of different events. And it depends on if it's something that's regularly there or if it's mobile, right? Because some events, some of these massive facilities that the country's building that are these all-purpose, any weekend, who knows what it is, they're kind of a Swiss Army knife of what's going to be there. We actually have mobile equipment, mobile hardware that either our staff, if we produce it for them, can run, or Garrett Shea's event team can set up on a given weekend, and with the right requirements, we'll actually stream the competition. The ones that are great for everybody are the set it and forget it, where it's physically permanently installed in the facility. So it's in a basketball gym, a hockey rink, a baseball field. We have several thousand baseball games coming online next summer that are collegiate and semi-pro. So, of course, all of those are permanently installed, and we can remotely control. So the facility owner or the event organizer or the activities director, they already got enough things going on. They don't want to have to worry about turning the lights on and hitting live on things. So our system out in an automated way actually will start play and start collecting whatever it is.
And so are you currently partnered? Do you have a hardware partner, or is the hardware something that Home Team Network builds and deploys?
Actually, I had a gap in my sports and events world, and I went to technology for a number of years. And I went to a company that actually was a manufacturer. And I realized in my time there, and thankfully we don't do it, it is really difficult to be a manufacturer because the technology changes so fast. And were we creating great technology? I was at a drone company then. We absolutely were. I had 25 engineers. We were creating great technology that was being utilized in the field. We were also competing with the biggest players in the space that had 5,000 engineers that were putting something out annually. Same thing here. We've got a situation where the best in the business, big names, Sony and Canon, Zenith and Magnavox and others that you haven't necessarily heard of from a TV standpoint, are all producing cameras and equipment every year. And so what we've done is we've just leaned on big manufacturers that have capabilities of putting things out quickly and making sure that those can integrate with our system, right? So make sure that they're best in breed, easy to set up for the user, right? So if you hand them out to the Cranberry Youth Tackle Football League and you give each team one kit, it's something that they can successfully set up their game, turn it on, and it's going to actually connect to that. And in that case, it would be a cellular network and then stream the game live to the platform. So it's great for our engineers because they love because of course they're constantly being able to evaluate best in breed. But then it's also good for our consumers because they don't want to have to make those decisions, right? They don't want to have to, what kind of camera do I have to have? If there's a bunch of options and those kind of things, we typically give them a recommendation of best practices depending on the sport, how many games a week they're trying to accomplish. Is it a permanent install, or is it something that coach is taking out of their truck or out of their closet at the facility on game night?
And so the live stream or the video on demand, whatever the phrase is, that pick your poison on that one. So in that space, it's clearly it's becoming a lot more crowded. How's Home Team Network? Because you're a newer entity. How are you competing against some of your competitors?
I think our biggest differentiator is the actual production part. We're bringing high level primetime night and weekend production if an organization chooses to their event. And it's some people are familiar with, I think it's one day a year ESPN has ESPN the Ocho, and it's all these amazing unique things. Well, we've managed to kind of find that spot, right? One weekend this summer we had a conference, so we were actually in a hotel streaming a conference that people typically pay for to go to, and they couldn't get them be in person for. So we were streaming from a Marriott. We did a major league tamale eating contest and a national squash championship. So all three of those were on the same day. Different equipment, a little different production. They all went to the same platform. They all had the same type of sponsorship model where each of those organizations had different advertisers, had different assets that were inserted into those productions. And then all of that, of course, could be watched live or was then in the archives to get there. But I think the thing that truly differentiates us today is the fact that we're actually offering, if organizations want it, that high-end produced event. Now, if you want a camera on that follows the game, score and time, we also can do that. But you alluded to that. The space is big and there's a number of players. You go to any major complex on a weekend today, you're going to see a lot of tripods in the air. You're going to see some device at the top of that tripod. It may or may not be streaming to the internet. It may just be collecting for upload later. But that's kind of the market that we're also working with, because those are the same groups of people you're selling sponsorships to, right? It's these hundreds of thousands of people that are weekly and weekends at these events that are being exposed to events, being exposed to partnerships in these activities.
Well, and as you talk about the value proposition for the user, and whether it's a sponsored production or just mom or dad buying it, right? At some point, there's got to be value there. And so I would have to assume that the different sports may be a better fit for for that elevated production than others, right? Like, and I'll use my children's youth sports experience. We went to a field hockey tournament. These field hockey fields are massive, and sometimes they have these little AI cameras that. And they're asking you to spend a lot of money to buy the film, and you look at the film and you're like, man, it's like watching ants, run around the field. And so, but at some point, parents are willing to pay. So if I could have a better production quality, I'd 100% pay. But I'm not going to pay for the security camera, footage, if you would. So, are there sports that you guys are targeting, given the, kind of some of the, that you probably do need better production to cover?
We've been fortunate where we have a number of national governing body partnerships, and those are kind of a good fit for this, right? Because it becomes regional and national competition. It becomes these feeder events where you have to qualify to get to a level, and then you have to qualify to get to the next level. Those types of events do a couple of things. One, quality of play is typically higher, right? Second thing is there's not as many of them. So you're not playing, there's sports, for example. Your kids' examples, mine's as well. My kids play soccer 15 or 20 weekends a year. I'm not gonna sweat missing one of the games at some point, or I don't need that perfect production of every one of their games. But there's events like gymnastics. There's events like any of your national finals that, because they are some sort of culminating event or only happen very infrequently, that's where we see the consumer being very interested in a higher production. And quite frankly, they'll pay a higher price because there's less opportunities. Where events that play a lot, basketball, volleyball, soccer, a lot of opportunities to play, a lot of opportunities to stream. You see in a lot of those cases, the production isn't as good because there's so much volume and the price is less because the kids are playing so much during the course of their season or the calendar year.
Sure. And I've kind of framed a lot of this in the club and high school space, but clearly I think also, and I'm sure, you guys are in it, and I've heard you talk a little bit about the college side. The smaller colleges have to be a really, good market for Home Team Network.
We started to have a number of conversations that it's about cycles for them, right? They have media rights deals, for better or worse, some are long. Now, that particular segment's getting super interesting because the regional networks have changed significantly to where, well, and of course, the college conferences have changed so much, right? It used to be regional, right? And a regional network could take on a conference and it would fit the footprint basically, and then it made sense for the regional network. Now, the regional sports networks have had a tough economic turn here the last 18 months or so. And so all of these schools are fighting the fight that all athletics are. Kids expect to be out, right? They expect their brands to be streamed. They expect all of their things to be accessible. And so in the past where, a Tuesday night game might not be streamed, all of these schools are starting to look for a centralized way to bring their content. Of course, their challenge is how do they monetize it?
And as you look at the live streaming marketplace, where do you see it going in the next few years?
I think the piece that people are just starting to wrap their brain around is not the actual activity that's being streamed. It's all of the data around it. I mean, very similar to our entertainment streamers, right? Some can argue that Netflix is a data company, not an entertainment company, right? They know more about you and I from our algorithm and what we click on and what we watch than we know about ourselves. Same thing here. As the industry gets more organized, you start getting more statistics. Historically, a sport that we've spent a lot of time on the last half year is curling, massive sport in Canada. Historically, the age group that's that audience tends to be older. And so we're starting to actually be able to provide for the rights holders data points that show morning broadcasts versus night broadcasts. Who's watching from a phone versus a tablet? Who's watching on their computer? Who has a smart TV? And you're seeing certain times of the day, inherently, older folks that aren't working maybe are watching the morning games because they maybe don't have a day job anymore. And the Friday night 7 to 10 game that they're seeing streamed, you get all of those data points showing that their viewership is 25 years younger, and it shows the gender that's watching and all of those things, which in turn comes back to why what you do in this podcast. That's what all of our partners want to know. They want to know viewership and unique viewership, and then the unique viewership number, what do the demographics look like? So as granular of data as you can give in any of those conversations, they necessarily don't care if it's 20 games or 100 over the course of the season. But if you can give them the data points that show that it meets whatever their target audience is, it makes it much more attractive as a sponsorship or a partnership.
And as you distribute, all of these games across the network, is there a centralized place that people go and can access all of the content? Do you have distribution partnerships in place? Is that something that you're looking to eventually, do down the road?
Yeah, currently everything lives on hometeamlive.com, and depending on what the rights holder has decided to do, there are games on there that any user can go for free, because that's what the organization wanted. They want as many eyeballs on their sport or their activities as they can. And then, of course, any of them that are part of a league subscription or whatever, that dictates what that looks like. In the second week in January, for the fourth leg of the Grand Slam of curling, we actually have 5 international linear television distribution partners that the rights holder has brought to the event. And so during the course of those 6 days, we're actually taking our on-site produced, streamed content that was its original purpose was to go to the cloud, is going to a number of countries internationally to linear television. So we're sending them what they call a clean feed that doesn't have commentators and doesn't have any language or graphics or anything like that. It's landing in somebody's studio, and a producer and talent is actually producing it with their country's culture, language, graphics, and all of those things. So that's been interesting for us because, of course, everyone has different consumption habits. And so we're really learning some things through that as to what it looks like in different countries, as to what their expectation is. What is good? How can things be improved? Because somebody that pays $9.99 a month for middle school football has a different production expectation than when our production lands on a main broadcasting partner in Japan.
So clearly the international side of live streaming is going to just continue to get bigger, especially through your NGB relationships. Maybe, especially with the Olympics coming to the United States, the World Cup coming to the United States, maybe talk about a couple of your NGB relationships and, what you kind of see here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's actually been really exciting because this is an opportunity for them to, certainly with it coming, for us at home, right? It's coming to the U.S. in LA 28. We got a lot of LA 28 around the office, and it's like the North Star for a lot of what our partners are doing. But in this last year, we've done a number of productions for USA Football, an organization that you and I are both, very familiar with, and it's super exciting time for them with flag football being added to the Olympics in Los Angeles. And so now they truly have this feeder program, right? This national team program that you and I both know, that they have all these events that they're starting to produce. They're starting to broadcast. They're starting to stream as they're trying to find and field, which is not a traditional sport, right? It's not a sport that you would have at a school where you could go to colleges or universities or academy programs that already have a way to scout those young people, right? So they're having to create this feeder program for the Olympics. We also work with an organization called the National Squash League, which is actually a professional squash organization in the U.S., but they're working with the U.S. Olympic Committee because squash has been added to the Olympics for Los Angeles 2028. Nobody's ever produced squash for an Olympics broadcast. So we're starting to field phone calls because we've done some squash production on what are best practices, what does the viewer actually want, those kind of things. We're actually, for them, doing the first time ever, a high school All-American squash match the first weekend in February, kind of similar to U.S. Army All-American Bowl or the McDonald's All-American game, where they're putting the best 12 squash male and female players together in the country, and they're playing. But that's also going to be a testing ground for what should and could a production look like for that sport, because, again, it's going to be the Olympics. And so I don't know even who has it. Assuming it's Peacock again, NBC Peacock. NBC Peacock just did a fantastic job with the last Olympics, but you could tell if you watched that which sports they hadn't done a lot of production of and which sports they probably didn't produce and that third parties were producing, because there's a lot of these unique sports that require unique equipment and unique skill sets to be able to get, that production value that an organization like that expects. But so all of the national governing bodies are looking at how can we take our, kind of our feeder program to these culminating events. Excitingly, in a little less than 4 years, we have the Summer Games coming here in the U.S., and so there's a lot of our U.S. NGBs that are, got their sights set on that.
Yeah, and I think the lead up to those key moments is what I would find most interesting, especially for your company. Because to your point, Home Team Network can start to introduce these new sports to an audience that knows nothing about squash or doesn't really understand flag football and how it's played and the rules. And hey, having a chance to watch some of these great players, and it's not just U.S. players, because I'd argue some of the more compelling content can be the international side, as you find some of these great athletes and great teams from other countries and telling their stories. I look at it and say, man, there's a great opportunity for Home Team Network to start to really start to introduce to America, to the world, these different sports, and do so through friendlies or through kind of to your point, kind of like feeder tournaments or feeder events. So I think from a sports fan perspective, right, from a business perspective, those are both super interesting, and it's a great space to be in for you guys.
Yeah, and the exciting part is internationally, streaming is always great because you have this opportunity that different organizations love to come to the U.S., right? We're constantly hosting these culminating events in the U.S., and that's exciting because ultimately, internationally, globally, folks want to come to the U.S., but it's usually just the participants, right? So then we have this ability to get that content and get that reach to the families and the supporters. And what that also gets you outside of is it gets us outside of any sort of geofencing, right? So you're going to have some situations where things are starting to be streamed where they can't actually be streamed in a country because there may be a linear television provider that has the rights there. And so, that our technology will not, in this coming year, we'll have the ability to not stream it in one country versus another based on requirements that the rights holder or the national governing body may have around the media rights for that particular event.
Yeah. Well, before we continue, I want to invite everyone to follow Greer Monterastelli on his LinkedIn, and make sure you like and comment, subscribe to Sponsorable, and you can find the link right below. So then as you look at, and it kind of dawned on me, as you look at a major network like NBC and the fact that they haven't produced many, squash events, let's say, I do find it really interesting to think that you guys at some point will have some amazing data for them to look at and analyze, like, hey, what should we be doing? How should we be producing squash events, at the Olympics? Is there a concerted effort from HTN to start to work with more NGBs? Are you trying to engage and target more, and let's call it NGBs that have an Olympic, program in place?
Yeah, it's the partnership just makes too much sense, right? It's because they have the need for expanding their reach, right? Because they want to get and educate their organization and their membership as much as possible about the events that they're doing, and so that allows them to get access to more of those young up and comers, right? How do they expose their program to whoever the next great one's going to be? I know that you and I, as we've crossed paths in the football world, there's a lot of folks that aren't exposed to some of these programs. So some huge portion of it is just educating people about the opportunities that are out there, and us being able to take their brand, produce their events, and then stream them on a platform, whether it's the event organizer's platform, the NGB's platform, or ours, or a combination of both. It allows them to really educate that particular viewership and participant group as to what the opportunities are out there for them.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Greer, it's been a pleasure having you on, talking certainly from the event perspective and some of the great event programs that you built out through your career. And now, as you are launching and building out a home team network, a live streaming network, that's really focused on, at least, from what you shared today, building out opportunities with NGB or national governing bodies and their Olympic programs, starting to get into the collegiate ranks. And then clearly you've established through the last couple of years being a dominant player in the club and high school event world and league world. So,
well, I appreciate your time. I the thing that's exciting for us is that, in going on with your focus and your roots, is it's a new way, right? I talk every week to organizations that have existing partners, and they've sold their existing partners a print ad, a logo on the back of a T-shirt, a banner hanging in the gym, right? A banner hanging at the football game. And now we're trying, we're working with them. We're helping our event organizers, that provide this content. How can we shift the mindset, and how do we show the value of the click, the view, whether or not it's a full game or it's the 60-second recap that gives me everything I need to know about an organization or a game from a particular night. And so we're working, as we work from one partner to the next and educating them that there still is the tactile sponsorship, but we're really working to get them engaged with their community and these event organizers with digital and streaming sponsorships as it's an opportunity going forward.
Well, and especially since you have centralized the content, I think that's such a win for Home Team Network, because too often you find the live streaming world that has let's just call it what it is, uncentralized content that nobody can find. Right now, at least, hey, advertisers, families, participants, they all know exactly where to go. It's all, stored, hubbed right there, and they can access it. And quite frankly, you can aggregate it. So that's even more important, because, brands don't necessarily want to buy a one-off event, but what they do want to buy is 10,000 events, and the exposure that they can achieve in marketing to all of those families that are watching and tuning in to those 10,000 events throughout the course of a year.
Yeah, we always start the conversation with how many kids, how many games, how many playing surfaces, because all of that math equates to numbers of views that are going to be online, right? So, to your point, large organizations aren't going to be interested in 6 games a weekend that a small club may have, and that's not a good fit for them. But if they go to, where they go to hometeamlive.com, you're going to get some massive amount of volume that, if for national players, for sure, an opportunity to hit those viewership and exposure numbers that they always look for when partnering with sporting events.
Awesome. Well, Greer Monterastelli, VP, Home Team Network, thanks so much for taking the time to be on Sponsorable, and we look forward to the next time having you on.
Thank you, Garrett, and look forward to seeing you down the road.
All right.